This lovely headpiece was only a one-day build, and I'm going to show you how I made it. So first I ordered these horns off of Amazon. They were really cheap, like 12 bucks. And because they were cheap, they were super flimsy. They were made out of rubber. They kind of flopped all over the place. So I took the elastic off of them, and then I ended up cutting holes in the bottom so that I could stuff the horns. I ended up stuffing them with old Walmart shopping bags, Goodwill bags, things of that variety, old plastic shopping bags. This was nice because it kept the horns light, but in the end they were still stiff, and then they didn't flop all over the place like they had in their original state. Next, I'm going to start building the headpiece itself. I'm using a scrap piece of warbler and an old headband, as well as some craft flowers that I'm going to dehead while my hot glue gun is warming up. Snip, snip. Most of them can pop right off, but sometimes you have to cut them. So I use the hot glue to press down the warbler, and warbler reacts to heat. So instead of getting on my heat gun because I was being super lazy, I actually used my hot glue gun to kind of heat up and lightly form my warbler. I wanted it to be flat but not curved too close to the head to create a sharp line depending on how it fit on the model that was going to be wearing it in the future. So I warmed it up just a little bit on the tip and pushed the tip down, and then I actually lined it with hot glue to create a raised space all the way around the edge, and then used the edge of a metal scissors so I didn't burn myself to round that out and push it down. I also went back and added some almost embossed looking designs, also with hot glue, just to create raised surfaces so that when I spray painted it, and I spray painted the horns, which I both spray painted gold, and then I covered the horns in glitter, it would look like an embossed piece. So now I'm gluing the horns onto the headband and apparently glaring at something in the background. The rubber and the hot glue don't always stick the best, and you definitely have to hold each of these pieces for a super long time. I'm going to talk to you today about how I reinforce all of this, because hot glue can be great, but hot glue can also be your enemy. So I'm putting the hot glue at the bottom and then up around the edges as well. Once I've got it hot glued in, I'm using a brown thin craft wire, and I'm going underneath the headband and then wrapping back up around the horns. So not only will it have the glue holding it in place, but it will also have some wire to reinforce it and hold it down. This wire also gives me a secondary place to be able to put my hot glue in when I glue all my flowers down, so that I have extra spaces and extra things kind of entwining together to reinforce that glue and make sure that everything sticks together as one large piece. So I'm wrapping around my horn, and then I'm also going to wrap down the edge of the headband itself. Around the horn and down the edge of the headband. And once I have it all the way to the bottom of the headband, I'm just going to snip off the excess. Snip, snip. Ta-da! So I did the exact same thing on the opposite side, and now I'm going to start gluing in my flowers. The client that ordered this wanted sunflowers and maroon colors. So I'm going to start weaving it in by pressing the sunflowers in between the wire pieces and putting the glue in there as well. Like I said, this is going to help reinforce everything. So instead of just a flower getting glued to a flat surface, I have a flower getting woven into the wire and underneath it, and I'm using that glue to secure it from all angles. So this is also going to take a while. It's, again, we have to hold it until the glue completely dries. If I have areas that I can't reach or that are inside of the glue and I don't want to burn myself, I'm using my scissors to press down and reinforce, moving my way slowly around each horn and putting the back side of the flower in toward the horn. So front or back, no matter where you look at this piece, it'll be filled. So you can see where the flowers are inside of that wire wrapping and underneath it. And then I've also glued together petals just really lightly together so that each piece connects to another piece, again reinforcing that everything will be one solid piece. So you can see where all of my flowers are now. Everything's beautifully set up. And I'm also icing my fingers because I burned them because I didn't use my scissors. So use your scissors so you're not suffering from hot glue burns like me. Now I'm gonna start into wire wrapping. So I decided that I wanted to make these little swirly pieces that would be a little bit more whimsical and go over the centers of the sunflowers. So I made this little curly cue, and then I cut about half an arm's length of wire. The wire is like a brown, bronzy color. And I'm swirling it around so that it sits over the middle, and then I'm taking the excess and winding it around any extra material and around the headband. So it's going to act as another form of reinforcement in some areas. And then it's also going to be this cute little swirl that sits in the center of all of my flowers, which I am thoroughly enjoying, and I think just adds a little extra touch to this headpiece that it wouldn't have otherwise. I'm going to press that in so it sits centered. Then you can see a couple of these little swirls that are poking out up and over the flowers themselves. Next, I'm turning the entire thing inside out, and I cut pieces of fleece and hot glued them to the inside to make it nice and cozy. Here we have our finished piece. It feels very woodland, kind of late summer, early fall. I really enjoyed making this piece, and I hope you enjoyed watching. So if you want to see more things like this, like and